Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the pole barn project. In today's video, we're going to be trimming out the windows. And I've got 4 of these windows. These are transom windows. They have a latch to the top and they tilt in. Really the main reason I put these in here was in case they ever want any ventilation. And they do add a little bit of light and kind of brighten up the space. But those are mainly here for ventilation. You might find these windows as remodel windows used for basements, transom windows above doors, or any place in any kind of a structure where you need a kind of a small window. And what I like about these is that they're budget friendly, especially if you're flexible on size. I just got whatever was available at the local home center, and I think these were right around $100 each. When I was looking into custom ordering transom windows to match my door, those are like $400 and up a piece. So these were more budget friendly for this project. And so we've come to the point in the project where I've got the interior walls covered with OSB, and really the next step is to trim out these windows. And so today's video is going to focus on that. There's a couple ways you can trim windows. When we built our home about 10 years ago, the windows, we ordered them with box trim attached, which was really nice because it was squared up. It was attached to the window frame. It was primed lumber. And when you put the windows up from the outside of the house, you automatically got your interior box trim. And that saved a heck of a lot of work. Really, you just had to come along afterwards and put face trim around the opening. In this case, though, I've put these windows into a rough opening from the outside. They've been sided over, flashed in, sided over for a few months now. And I need to come along and frame in a box on the inside of the opening and then put my face trim. Now, I've seen people over the years, they'll come in here with 4 pieces of wood and tack it into the opening, but your rough opening is never perfect. It's never square. It's called a rough opening for a reason. I mean, you're doing it to framing tolerances, not the trim tolerances. And if you try and trim this out just by tacking up boards on the inside of the opening, it's probably not going to look too good, or you're going to struggle to get it square and to get the joints nice and tight to make it look good. So you really don't want to do that. What makes more sense is to build a box ahead of time. It's going to be slightly smaller than your rough opening, and you'll basically put it in here, butt it up against the window, and either use shims or simple spacers to get it centered on the window, and then tack it into your framing. So that's what I'm going to do here today. For this project, I'm going to be using scrap siding material from the outside of the barn, and this came as a 1x12 Eastern white pine, smooth on 3 edges and then textured on the outside edge for siding. And I'll be using this as is for the face trim, probably ripped down to about 3.5 inches wide. But for the box on the inside of the opening, I really don't want this rough texture. I mean, you just picture that rough texture sitting up here. It's going to collect dust. If you put anything in the windowsill, it's going to snag it. So really step 1 in this process is to run this through the planer and take off this rough surface. This 1x siding is actually 13/16 thick. And what I found in the past is I can usually run this through the planer at 3/4 of an inch and get a lightly textured finish that's good for more things. If I really want to get this perfectly smooth, I probably have to knock it down another 1/6 beyond that. So I'm going to run a few boards through at 3/4, see how they look. If that's not smooth enough, I'll take it down to 11/16 and hopefully that'll do the trick. I'm going to be using mostly scrap for this, which is nice, but I probably will have to break into 1 or 2 of my leftover boards to get these longer sides. These are 32 inches. These shorter ones are 16. So Let's head over to the planer and start smoothing out our boards. All right, so we planed the boards down, and then I went around to all the 4 windows in here and measured the depth of the opening so I know how to rip the boards for the box. And this is the first thing I want to point out. If you're doing anything on an old house, on a remodel, on something that was built with sloppy framing or something like this where, you know, one half started as a timber frame carport, the other half is a new pole barn addition, and things are going to be different everywhere. Don't just go ahead and rip all your boards to the same dimension. Chances are that's not going to work everywhere. Go to each individual window, get an idea what the depth of your opening is going to be, and then, you know, custom rip your boards to each opening. You'll get a better result in the end. So for this window, and actually the other new one, I got a nice uniform depth of 7 1/4 inches. And so what I like to do is rip my boards a little bit narrower than that. So these guys will rip to 7 3/16. And that just lets the box soak up any variations there might be in the vinyl window frame, because they're never totally perfect. You know, at the worst, it's going to leave a really thin gap back here against the vinyl that you'll probably never see. If it's an issue, that's a good place to put some caulking. So what I want to do now is just get a rough idea how these boards are going to be after I rip them to depth and cut them to length. And let's get the bottom one in there. And then this top one, I'll probably just hold that in there temporarily while we talk. So this is a nice fit, but as I mentioned, you know, don't go ahead and nail these in now. It's tempting to think, I could just nail these in now because they're nice and tight, but I can see that if I was going to nail this tight and nail this tight, it's going to open up a gap here in these corners, because again, the rough opening, the rough framing is not perfect. We want our trim to be perfect, okay? And one other thing I can do is I'll get this board up at the top. I'm going to put it in this way. And, you know, I can eyeball that and see that I've got a little bit more gap up here, but down here, really the reveal or the gap around the vinyl window frame is just perfect the way it is. And so when I take these boards down and nail my box together, I'm just going to lower this board about 1/8 to 3/16 when I pin the box together. That way, when I put this back up here, vertically, things will be perfect without the need for any shims. I'll be able to rest this board on the bottom. I might shim it a little bit to level it, but in terms of spacing the opening, the trimmed opening inside the rough opening, I can pre-adjust for that by just, you know, putting more of a gap in my box when I nail together. So at this point, we're ready to take these boards down, bring them over to the workbench, and nail our box together. All right, so I got the boards laid out here on the table, really in the same arrangement I used up at the window there. That's kind of important in case there were any variations that I was soaking up with the boards. I'm doing the same thing here. And I'm just using a little picture frame clamp to hold each corner together while I come in and nail it up with my brad gun. I'm using 15 gauge brads. I'm using a 2-inch brad, and these, what I like about these, they are, the tips of these are coated with glue. It heats up as they shoot in, and these things hold really good. I mean, when I've tried to take these out in the past in other projects, you usually pull the wood out off of the brad before the brad comes out of what it's gone into, just because these hold so good. So I'm gonna put a few of these on each corner, and then our box will be ready to go back and get fit into the window frame. I guess one thing I want to point out here is it's super important that your saw is making, you know, nice straight square cuts. I'm really relying on the saw cuts to put all this into proper alignment and proper square. You know, if things aren't perfect, I can kind of horse it a little bit at the end and bend the brads a little bit, but in general, you know, I'm not using a zillion clamps here. I'm not using jigs or fixtures. I'm relying on nice square straight saw cuts to really hold things together for me. So let's get started with nailing. And I'm just going to repeat this, move around all the corners. I'll speed this up as you're watching it so it doesn't take forever, and away we go. All right, so I'm back over here with my frame, and now I just need to, you know, slide it in there, see how it's going to work out. House wrap out of the way. And there we have it. So I can make this nice and flush with the wall on all faces, so I'm going to get a good detail when I nail on the face trim. I pre-adjusted my box positioning up here by just moving this top board down about 3/16 when I nail it all together, so that I can get the reveal up here without using a whole lot of shims. You know, to do that, the bottom is sitting right on the sill, so I don't need any shims there. I'm not going to really need to Mickey Mouse with things here. And so this is the way to get a nice square box with very tight corner joints in your window. You know, again, you don't want to try and do this one board at a time because it's just not going to work out. No rough opening is ever that perfect. But if you can, you know, make good measurements, build your box over on the workbench, and then put it in here, you're going to get a real nice fit. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is make any final tweaks I need to with shims or cardboard or anything, just to get this nice and centered and lined up in the opening. Put a few brads in this to hold it in place, and then we'll come back over and do our face trim. All right, so the face trim for rustic buildings, and I believe I showed this in a video on the outside of the pole barn when I trimmed the outside of the windows. I like to do just simple butt joints instead of miters. I don't know, the miters are too fussy, and I don't even think they look right on a rustic type of building when you're using unfinished lumber or rough sawn lumber. So I'm going to do butt joints around this window and all the windows. And I tend to do this by eye. I find out it comes out looking fine if I do it by eye. If you overthink it, you overcomplicate it, chances are it's not going to come out any better, probably come out worse. And so what I normally do is I just get a rough idea of the reveal I want between my face trim and the inside of the box. And I'm generally doing about 1/4 of an inch or so of a reveal. And I will use that to determine the length I need to cut my verticals. And then I'll come in and nail down the verticals, and then we'll come back and do the horizontals. So let's get the verticals in first. So I'm going to line these up with some of the marks I made to set my reveal. And I am really just going to eyeball it, both to get the reveal how I want it, and also to get this trim board, nice and parallel with the window box. And once I'm happy with it, I'll just come in here and put in a few brads just to hold it temporarily, not a big deal. And then pick my other piece and come over here, do the same thing. Again, I'm using marks I made before when I determined what the length was going to be. Yeah, so that looks nice and vertical. I got a couple brads in there now. And then the next step is just going to be to size the top and the bottom boards, and I'm not even going to measure for this. I've got some nice clean cut over here. So let's say we use this board on the bottom. I'm just going to come over here and mark it. And so I'll take that over to the saw and cut that one over there. And in fact, I'm going to write down bottom, just so I know. And then the top one, same thing. I've got a board, and I've got a clean cut over on this end. Take this guy up here, and for a little more styling flair, some people will put a overhang here. I'm not going to do that, but that's done a lot with rustic buildings. So I've got this board in position. I'm just going to mark that one there, and make a note that this is the top. And take these over to the saw and cut them the size. Then we'll come back and nail them on. All right, I'm back after cutting the bottom and the top boards, and so the bottom facing up, so we can stick that in here. And it's going to fit. It's going to fit perfectly because I've minimized all the ways I can screw this up. I mean, I actually scribed it to fit, and I've marked the reveal before, so I got a nice even reveal on the bottom. And so we can put a few brads into this guy. And then the same thing on the top. And there's top and up. That comes over here. Fits perfectly. It has to. I can't really screw it up when it's this simple. And that's it. So we got a nice trimmed out window here. It looks crisp. Everything fits nice and tight. Good clean joints. This is the way I do it. I think you can't go wrong with this method. Everything comes out clean. If there are any errors, they're going to be hidden back here where the box meets up to the window frame. And again, if that's a concern, you can put a bead of caulk there. It's not for this building. It's not because I have unfinished wood against the white window frame. You really won't even ever see any gaps back there. And so really the only thing to do from here is I'm going to put a few more nails in the trim. What I'll probably come do is get either my neck size down brad gun or switch to shorter brads and just put a couple along the edge into the box here. It's easy to go into that with good intentions and then shoot a brad through coming out and mess your whole thing up. So I tend to do that carefully. It's not really even necessary. I just feel better about joining this wood to that wood. And so I'll come back and do that in a minute. But that's going to do it for today. That's how I frame out my windows. Minimizes problems. I do make some measurements, but overall this is the visual process. And so you want to have a good eye. But you don't have to be a genius here. You just need to be able to really eyeball things to line them up. You need to be able to scribe some pencil lines so you know where to make your cuts. And I don't even know if this window opening is not perfect. It doesn't matter because nothing I really did today depends on this rough opening or even the vinyl window frame to be perfect. I've eliminated all the pitfalls that you'd run into if you tried to fit your trim exactly to this opening. And you want to avoid that. You want to make a nice square box, and then you want to come back and eyeball your trim and scribe it to fit. And if you do that, it's simple, it's quick, and it comes out looking great. So that's going to do it for today. As always, thanks for watching.